When the inspector raised his hand on the vegetable seller, what happened next shocked everyone. It was a bright Tuesday morning in the small town of Maplewood, Ohio. The local farmers' market was bustling with activity, people bartering, laughter in the air, the scent of fresh herbs and tomatoes lingering around the stalls. Among the crowd, a woman in her early 30s walked calmly down the street, dressed in a plain t-shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Her demeanor was warm, her presence humble, but her gaze carried quiet authority. No one could have guessed that this woman was none other than Danielle Morgan, the chief administrative officer of the entire county, a position equivalent to district manager. Known to many only from local news headlines or formal meetings, Danielle had decided to walk among her people without fanfare, without guards, just as one of them. She stopped at a vegetable stand run by a woman about her age. The seller, wearing a faded denim apron, was busy arranging cucumbers and bell peppers. As Danielle greeted her with a friendly smile and inquired about the prices, a small boy, maybe 6 or 7, came running toward the stand. "Mom! We're late, I'm gonna miss the school bell," he cried, hugging the vendor's waist. The woman turned, brushing sweat from her forehead. "Just wait a few minutes, sweetie," she said, her tone gentle but exhausted. "Let me finish with this customer, then I'll take you." "But Mom, please," the boy pleaded, eyes wide and voice trembling. "The teacher's gonna be mad." Danielle, watching this scene unfold, felt her heart stir. Her smile deepened as she turned to the woman and said, "Why don't you take him to school? I'll watch the stand until you come back." The vendor hesitated. I don't know," she murmured. "I've never." "You can trust me," Danielle said, her voice firm yet kind. "Go ahead. I've got this." Reluctantly, the woman agreed, wiping her hands on her apron. "Thank you, ma'am. I'll be quick." She grabbed her son's backpack and hurried off, the little boy's hand clutched tightly in hers. Left alone, Danielle stepped behind the stand and began observing the environment, the chatter, the smells, the quiet rhythm of small-town commerce. A few minutes later, a motorcycle pulled up. The man riding it wore a police badge clipped to his chest and dark sunglasses. He was lean, confident, and clearly familiar with the area. He parked carelessly, swung off the bike, and approached the stand. "What the hell? You selling vegetables now?" he asked with a mocking smirk. "Wasn't there another woman here yesterday?" Danielle turned to reply, but before she could speak, the vegetable vendor returned, slightly breathless. Her face tightened as she recognized the officer. "Good morning, Officer Becker," she said nervously, her voice barely audible. "What can I get for you today?" Becker scoffed. "Give me a pound of tomatoes, a bunch of okra, and half a pound of squash. And make it quick. I'm on duty." The vendor moved swiftly, weighing the produce without making eye contact. Becker snatched the bag, turned on his heel, and left, without paying a single dime. Danielle stood frozen, her mind reeling. After a beat, she looked at the vendor and asked softly, "Why didn't he pay?" The woman sighed, her shoulders slumping. "He never does. Every other day, he comes by, takes what he wants, and threatens me if I say anything." Danielle frowned. "Threatens you?" "Yeah. Says if I make trouble, he'll get my stand shut down. I've got 2 kids, ma'am. I can't afford to lose this. So I stay quiet." Danielle's face grew still. Her eyes, once gentle, now burned with quiet fury. "Not anymore," she said. "This ends now. Here's my number. Call me if anything happens tomorrow. But more importantly, don't come. I'll be here in your place. Let's see what he does when I'm the one running this stand." The next morning, just as the sun broke over the sleepy town of Maplewood, Danielle Morgan stood at the same vegetable stand, but this time she was unrecognizable. Her sleek hair was tucked under a faded baseball cap, and she wore a simple cotton blouse and a floral skirt that hung slightly too long. Her posture mimicked that of a modest, working-class woman. There was no makeup, no badge, and no sign of the authority she truly held. She had arranged the produce carefully, plump tomatoes in front, crisp green beans neatly piled, cilantro bunched beside fiery red chilies. As the first customers trickled in, she smiled and handled the sales with the ease of someone who had observed more than just public administration, someone who understood people. Around 9 a.m., the familiar growl of a motorcycle broke the market's calm. Officer Becker. He rolled up in his usual fashion, loud, careless, arrogant. He didn't bother parking properly. His boots crunched against the gravel as he walked to the stand, eyeing Danielle with curiosity. "You again?" he said, pulling off his sunglasses to get a better look. "Where's the other lady? This her day off or what?" Danielle didn't flinch. "She's my sister," she said evenly. "I'm covering for her today." Becker's lips curled into a leering grin. Well, gotta say, you're a lot easier on the eyes than your sister." His gaze swept over her slowly, unsettlingly. "Looking real pretty today." Danielle didn't respond. She simply reached for the scale and started preparing the order. "I'll take a pound of tomatoes," he said, still staring. "Some cilantro and green chilies too. Don't skimp." She nodded, filled the bag, and handed it to him wordlessly. Becker started turning toward his bike when Danielle said firmly, "You haven't paid." He paused. "What?" "You haven't paid for the vegetables," she repeated, voice louder this time. "You owe me $10. Becker blinked, then chuckled darkly. "You serious?" "I never pay. Ask your sister. She knows the deal." "She's scared," Danielle replied, locking eyes with him. "But I'm not. Pay up." Becker's face darkened. "Listen, lady, I don't know who you think you are, but you're crossing a line. This is how it works. I take what I need. You stay quiet." "Not today," Danielle said calmly. "Today you pay." That was when the mask cracked. Becker's nostrils flared, and in a sudden burst of rage, he raised his hand and slapped Danielle hard across the face. The impact echoed in the narrow alleyway between the stands. Danielle staggered, one hand on her cheek, her cap tumbling to the ground. For a moment, everything was still. The few nearby vendors turned their faces away, too afraid to interfere. Danielle stood upright, her cheek red and stinging, but her eyes blazed with fire. "You just hit a woman in public," she said, voice shaking not with fear, but fury. "There will be consequences for that." Becker stepped closer, sneering. "You don't get it, do you? I'm the law here. You try reporting me, and I'll make sure it's you who gets arrested. No one's gonna believe a vegetable seller over me." Danielle didn't say another word. She simply stared at him until he turned away, spat on the ground, and revved up his motorcycle. She watched him disappear around the corner, then picked up her cap and quietly dialed a number on her phone. "It's time," she said into the receiver. "He just crossed the line." Later that afternoon, Danielle Morgan sat quietly at her kitchen table, still in her simple clothes. A faint bruise had begun to bloom on her cheek, but her eyes were alert, unwavering. She picked up her phone and dialed the vendor, the woman from the stall. "You can come back now," Danielle said. "I handled it." The woman sounded concerned. "Is everything okay? He didn't do anything, did he?" Danielle's voice was steady. "He did. But it's going to be dealt with." After ending the call, Danielle changed. She slipped out of her humble attire and into a plain yellow salwar kameez, a modest, unassuming outfit that allowed her to move anonymously, just as any average townswoman might. Then she made her way to the town's main police precinct. No driver, no escort, no official car. She walked in alone, just like any other citizen seeking justice. Inside, a tired-looking officer sat at the front desk, scrolling through his phone. He looked up lazily. "Yes? I need to file a complaint," Danielle said. "Is Officer Becker here?" The officer didn't blink. "He's off duty. Probably at home. Captain Ramirez isn't here either. Field inspection. Can I wait?" she asked. "Sure. Might take a while though." She nodded and sat on the bench near the window. Her fingers tapped gently on her lap, her eyes tracing the peeling posters on the wall about community safety and ethics. 20 minutes passed before the main office door swung open. A heavy-set man in a dark blue uniform stepped in. Captain Thomas Ramirez. He walked in briskly, but his eyes landed immediately on Danielle. Her posture, her calm expression, it caught his attention. "You need something, miss?" he asked, his voice gruff. Danielle stood and spoke clearly. "I need to file a report. Against Officer Becker." Ramirez raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "Against Becker? For what?" Danielle hesitated just a moment. "Harassment, assault, theft." Ramirez laughed under his breath. "Whoa. That's a lot. Look, around here, we don't just take reports like that unless there's some motivation." "What do you mean by motivation?" "Let's not pretend," he said, lowering his voice. "You got a complaint? Maybe you've got something to help us process it. Most people bring in at least a couple $100. A little report fee. You got that?" Danielle's jaw clenched. "You're asking for a bribe to file an assault complaint?" He shrugged. "Call it what you want. Around here, people know how things work." Danielle's expression turned ice cold. She slowly reached into her bag and took out a $10 bill. "Here. Now write the damn report." Ramirez chuckled and took the bill. "Fine. Tell me what happened." Danielle looked him straight in the eye. "Officer Becker has been extorting produce from a street vendor for months. Yesterday I stepped in. Today he assaulted me. Slapped me in public. I want a full investigation." Ramirez's smirk faltered. "Becker's one of our senior officers. Maybe the vendor offered the vegetables. She didn't. And even if she did, he threatened her. And me." Ramirez shifted uncomfortably. "Look, lady, we don't want to blow things out of proportion." Danielle cut him off. "You already did. But don't worry. I'm not here just as a citizen." She opened her bag again and pulled out her identification card. Captain Ramirez's face drained of color. It was official. Danielle Morgan, Chief Administrative Officer of Maple County. The very woman who oversaw internal affairs, personnel conduct, and law enforcement accountability. Ramirez stumbled back a step. You're the county CAO?" Danielle didn't blink. "And you just asked the county's chief administrator for a bribe to file an assault complaint?" His voice stammered. I didn't know. I swear, ma'am, if I had any idea." "You wouldn't have asked?" she interrupted. "Or you would have just been more careful?" Ramirez's mouth moved, but no words came out. Danielle leaned closer, her voice low and cutting. "You and Officer Becker are about to learn exactly how the system responds when the law is used to bully instead of protect." The next morning, sunlight broke across the roof of the Maplewood Police Precinct as a convoy of black vehicles rolled into the lot. Doors opened sharply. Uniformed guards stepped out, flanking the woman now dressed in a tailored navy blue suit. Her ID badge gleamed in the sun, Danielle Morgan, County Chief Administrative Officer. As she strode toward the station doors, her heels echoed sharply. Every officer inside froze. Conversations halted. Eyes turned. No one moved. Danielle entered with a commanding air, accompanied by her administrative assistant and 2 legal officers. Behind them, internal affairs officers began filing in with sealed envelopes. Captain Ramirez stood at his desk, pale as paper. Officer Becker, who had just entered with a coffee in hand, nearly dropped it when he saw her. "You," he whispered. Danielle faced them both. Her voice was calm, clear, and firm. "Yesterday, I walked into this building as a citizen and was asked for a bribe to file an assault complaint. Today, I walk in with the full power of the county administration and internal oversight." Ramirez opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. "Silence. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to restore what your uniforms were meant to protect, justice." She turned to Officer Becker. "You assaulted a woman in public, stole goods repeatedly, and used your badge to intimidate working-class citizens. You struck me across the face, and then you threatened me. You violated every principle your oath stood for. Becker looked stunned, then muttered, Ma'am, I didn't know. Exactly, Danielle snapped. You didn't know who I was. And that's what terrifies me most, because if I hadn't been the CEO, you would have walked away again. She faced Ramirez next. And you? You're the captain of this station. You asked for a bribe, laughed at an official complaint, and tried to minimize a criminal act committed by your own officer. Turning to her assistant, she said calmly, Execute the suspensions. The assistant handed 2 sealed suspension notices to the internal affairs agents, who immediately placed them on the desks in front of Becker and Ramirez. You are both hereby suspended, effective immediately, pending formal departmental investigation. Further criminal proceedings will be initiated by the county's legal division. Gasps filled the room. Officers looked at one another in disbelief. Ramirez fell to his knees. Ma'am, please. I was wrong. I admit it. Please give us a chance to fix it. One last chance? I've served this community for 22 years. Becker followed suit, his voice trembling. I swear I'll change, ma'am. I won't touch another soul without just cause. I'll pay back everything I took. Please don't destroy my career. Danielle stared at them both. Her expression was unreadable, her silence heavy. She then slowly turned to the other officers and addressed the entire precinct. Let me make this clear to everyone in this building. The badge you wear is not armor for corruption. It is a symbol of responsibility, of honor, of service. If any of you thinks your position entitles you to intimidate, harass, or steal from the people you serve, think again. Because from now on, this county will not tolerate it. Then she looked back at the 2 men still kneeling before her. Stand up, she said, her tone even. This isn't about public humiliation. This is about accountability. And whether or not you're ever allowed to wear that uniform again depends entirely on what you do from this moment forward. Danielle turned and walked out of the precinct without another word, her footsteps measured, composed. The sun outside felt warmer somehow, as though the entire town could sense something had shifted. Word spread fast. Within hours, local news stations reported the suspension of 2 senior police officers. But more than that, they highlighted something Maplewood hadn't seen in years, an official willing to go undercover, endure humiliation, and fight from within the system to correct it. By the next day, a new tone settled across the police department. Officers showed up on time. Voices that once spoke in sarcasm now carried a hint of respect. The woman at the vegetable stall, the one who once shook in fear at the sound of a motorcycle, sat behind her cart smiling gently as customers came and went. She no longer glanced over her shoulder. She no longer flinched when she saw a uniform. Danielle paid her a quiet visit that afternoon, dressed once again in her civilian clothes. You doing okay? She asked. The woman nodded, eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Better than ever. My boy's been asking about you. He says you're like a superhero. Danielle smiled, her heart warmed. Tell him superheroes don't wear capes. They wear aprons, and sometimes stand behind vegetable carts even when they're scared. As they stood there, customers continued to arrive, unaware that the tall woman helping weigh onions had once walked through marble hallways of government buildings. She was one of them now. And because of that, the town itself had begun to believe in something again. That evening, Danielle stood before a small group of trainees at the county's police academy. Her voice was calm but deliberate as she spoke. Power isn't about being feared. It's about being trusted. If you wear this badge to frighten someone into silence, take it off. You don't deserve it. But if you wear it to protect those who cannot protect themselves, then stand tall. Because this community, this country, needs you. She paused, letting her words settle. I was slapped in public. Threatened. Humiliated. But I'm grateful it happened. Because it reminded me of why I chose this job. Not for the office. Not for the title. But for people who have no one else to stand beside them. Danielle stepped down from the podium, applause echoing behind her. Outside the building, night had fallen. But the lights inside burned bright. And from that day forward, Maplewood became known not just as a small, quiet town in Ohio, but as a place where justice stood up wearing plain clothes, a firm voice, and an unshakable resolve. Dear friends, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and share it as much as possible. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our Zaku Stories channel. We'll see you in the next video. Stay well, stay safe. Allah Hafiz.